This technical series is presented by Iggy Brigado, Senior Sales Engineer for JPS Interoperability Solutions.
As far as receiving is concerned, as long as I have my receiver sites set up throughout my region, I can roam with my subscriber unit between these receiver sites and seamlessly hand off my communications, and it should be completely transparent. So we set up what we call the voting criteria, and that's set up in the control processor module, which is the brains of the system. And by default, I think our criteria is the noise floor has to improve by 1 dB for a period of 250 milliseconds before I move to that other site, so we don't create chattering between sites. And if I align my receive audio delay perfectly, you should not hear the handing off of the receiver sites as I move throughout my region. So that's the essence of perfect voting. And so some of the talk out techniques we use, and one of the most common is to use a single wide transmitter site. I have one set up here. I vote one of my receiver sites. I deliver the audio to one of my SVM2 modules on the right side of the chassis. I have 12 sites I can vote, and then I determine the spectral noise above 2.2 kilohertz, and I repeat that audio out a singular high power region-wide transmitter. I can also deliver the voted audio to the dispatch center or a dispatch console, or I can mix. I can do both. I can repeat as well as deliver audio to the dispatch center, and I can create priorities. So if I want my dispatcher to have transmit priority, they can essentially override any repeat transmission. So it's a lot of flexibility in the SNV12 to meet anybody's need. But so this is probably the most common configuration that we see out in the field. And in fact, if you talk to Benny Hillman, he's our SNV12 guru in the factory there at JPS. I often call him about voter issues. But when I talk to customers, and I know Benny does the same thing, is if we have a lot of problems, if the customer has a lot of problems with their voter, we often tell them default all the switch settings or the configurations of the chassis, which means that's the state that the chassis has been delivered from JPS, and it will probably support a single region-wide transmitter. All right, as you have to set up the audio levels, set up the status tone, the pilot tone, but the default configuration of the voter will support this single region-wide transmitter right out of the box. So setting the chassis back to default is a great way of troubleshooting and essentially starting from scratch. So the other configuration that's often deployed with analog voters, particularly the SNV12, is multicast. And multicast is interesting because now each of the receiver sites, the satellite receiver sites, also has a capability of transmitting. And each receive frequency at each of the receive sites are different, as well as the transmit frequencies of each site are different. So this requires a subscriber unit, whether it's a mobile or a portable, as they move into different regions, they're required to switch their channels. A lot of commercial systems are deployed using multicast. Again, requires the user to change the channel on their subscriber unit. A little bit inconvenient, but it's a very economical way of creating more coverage. When my receiver site in a multicast environment receives, we will naturally vote that site, deliver the audio to the voter, and through multicast, we can deliver to multiple transmitters throughout my entire region, and then I can start communicating with others that are completely outside of my region. But by multicasting and broadcasting throughout my region, I can then create two-way communications with others that are outside of my region. The only inconvenience, again, is that the users of the subscriber units must change their channels.